Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. Okay, we have quite a stack of questions. I'll try to go through them as quickly as possible, try to keep the answers short so that we can get through them. Can the jinn physically cause us harm? If so, can we physically protect ourselves? Yeah, it is possible that the jinn may cause us physical harm. We protect ourselves by living Islamic lives, by doing what God has commanded us, by using the various prayers which the Prophet had taught us ﷺ, to protect ourselves. And these things may go away. And if they don't, if one is patient with whatever harm that may come to one, physical harm that may come to one by way of the jinn, then Allah rewards that person. We have the case of a woman who used to clean the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, and she used to be overcome from time to time by the jinn. And she asked the Prophet ﷺ to pray to Allah to remove it from her. And he said, I can pray to Allah and remove it from you, or you can be patient with it and your reward will be paradise. So she chose to be patient with it, but she asked Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that whenever she's overcome, that she wouldn't, she used to tear at her clothes and expose herself. So she asked that not take place. So he prayed to protect her from that. Can I have a good friend who is a fortune teller with a jinn or something else? It might very well have been. When me and my mother get together with friends and drink Turkish coffee, we turn the cups upside down, and one of us reads the cups for fun. But we don't believe it. Is this wrong? Yes, it is wrong. Does magic have something to do with the jinn? Yes, the effects of magic are through the agency of the jinn. Do humans become angels when they die? No. Can we keep a dog in the house for the purpose of protection? If a dog enters the house, do we need to wash it for the acceptance of prayers? Well, the dog which is kept just for a friend, as is common in some societies where the dog becomes man's best friend. People make clothing for the dogs, even shoes. People die and they leave all their inheritance to dogs. And they have children and they don't even leave anything for them. I mean, this kind of approach to the dogs is prohibited in Islam. A dog may be kept for protection purposes, a guard dog, or a dog which is used for herding sheep, or a hunting dog. These are the basic types of dogs which may be kept. But the dog is kept in its place. I mean, you don't take the dog to bed with you. He sleeps in the bed along with you, kissing you in the morning when you get up. This whole type of approach to the dog is not acceptable Islamically. As long as he's kept in his place, he has a kennel, a little spot where he stays, then it's not necessary to clean the home or clean him. I mean, the dog, of course, should be cleaned regularly anyway, but it's not a requirement for prayers to be accepted in the home. And one thing to note about dogs is that sometimes, unfortunately, because, Islam teaches us that if a dog licks or drinks from the vessel which we have eaten or which we're drinking from, that we should pour out the contents, let the dog finish eating it, and clean that vessel, 7 times. One of the times we clean it with clean earth. This is the mode for cleaning vessels which have been, which the saliva of the dog has come in contact with. This is specifically for vessels for eating. This is how we clean it. Because there is some harm that the dog possesses which is conveyed to us through this means. Why we use clean earth? Any biochemist can tell you that the vast majority of antibiotics are taken from earth sources, from the earth. People who work for the big chemical labs in Europe, when they go home to different parts of the world, they are asked to gather portions of earth from their different parts and brought back, because this is where antibiotics come from. Penicillin is coming from dust, the dust in the air. So we know that earth, clean earth, has these properties. Now, this is specifically for eating and drinking vessels. It doesn't mean that if a dog licks you, now you have to wash your hand 7 times, one of the times with dirt. No. If he licks your clothing, same thing. No. Actually, if a dog licks you, it doesn't break your state of ablution. If he touches your clothing, it doesn't break your state of ablution. These are not among the things which break the state of ablution. This is a misconception amongst many Muslims. And what it does is it turns Muslims into having this sort of phobia about dogs, If a person comes with a dog, Muslims are running in all the directions, right? Nobody wants to be anywhere near this dog. For a lot of non-Muslims, they really think this is very strange. Muslims have this phobia about dogs, because the people have gone to extremes with regards to them. As I said, it is only in regarding vessels from which we eat and drink. Can we do palm reading? No. Palm reading is a form of fortune telling. In India, we go to some sheikhs who will tell us where lost things are. If we've lost some items, we go there and they will tell us where they are. These are righteous looking sheikhs with big beards and turbans and everything, and they tell us where lost things are. Or if you need somebody to like you, they will tell you, what to do, and they'll get this person to like you. Or people can't get their daughter married, they go to the sheikh and he prepares some potions for them or whatever, and it gets their daughter married. This is all shirk. This is all involving the jinn, etc. Knowledge of the unseen, of where things are, which was legitimate. This was in the case of Prophet Jesus. Is one of his miracles that he could tell people where items were, what were in their homes, etc. Beyond that, people are dealing with the jinn. What is the difference between the soul that inhabits a female and one that inhabits a male? No difference. The soul is the soul. The female, male, this is an external difference. If a jinn possesses me and can force me to do certain actions against my will, am I then responsible? No. But this doesn't mean people can run around and saying a jinni made me do this, a jinn made me do that. This is that this before Allah, right? Before God, if a person is possessed and they did certain acts, then they're excused. And this is a very important part in terms of Islamic law, where you have a state which is referred to as temporary insanity in Western law, right? In the Muslim legal system, yes, insanity, which is in Arabic is referred to as being junoon. A person who is insane is called majnoon, which means they have been jinned, right? This is what it literally means. Meaning that they could be under the influence of the jinn, or it could be something biological also. But in any case, a person who is known insane, if they commit a crime, murder, or any other type of crime, they are not punished according to Islamic law. They may be put in an institution or whatever, but not punished. And this is the same basically in Western law. However, Western law has this other category of what they call temporary insanity, where a person could be sane, but for that moment he went insane, he killed somebody, he raped somebody, he did whatever, and after that he regains his sanity. And this is a plea which people use to get out of crimes. In Islamic law, this is not accepted. A person who is insane is a person who is insane before the act and after the act. And insane doesn't mean, a person who may have extreme behavior. A person who is insane is a person who, it's known when you speak to this person, you speak to them, what's your name? They say the sky is blue. Their response has nothing to do with the questions that you're asking them. This is a person who's insane, not a person who just gets very angry at certain times. Because people say, person refer to these people as being mad, but this is not acceptable according to Islamic law. Is it true that that Satan was a pious jinn before the creation of man? Well, Satan was, Iblis, that is, was among the angels. It is assumed that for him to have reached that elevated state was due to his obedience or due to certain knowledge which he had. And through his disobedience, he lost that status and became cursed eternally. Why do jinns enter pictures? Also, does this extend to mirrors? Are our reflections in the mirror jinn inhabited? Well, if you ever look in a mirror and see it doing things that you're not doing, then you can believe it. What we said before about the jinn, entering pictures or things like this is to create in the minds of people, that these pictures have special truth to them, or special holy nature or holy qualities, etc. Like as I spoke about the picture where the eyes closed or tears came from it, etc. If there are good jinns, would they have in their world meetings, lectures, etc., like we practicing Muslims do? Yes. Why not? And also, of course, the Quran refers to gatherings of the jinns, reading the Quran, etc. So we know that they do actually. In relation to people being possessed, how can we tell if one is? Well, there are, signs which have to do with changes in people's character. It may involve changes in their voice patterns, certain times. They may take on very, filthy type habits. I mean, it's generally speaking, it's somebody who goes right out of character. They seem to have taken on another personality altogether. In the West, you have a category of what they call multiple personalities, which are one of the examples of jinn possession. What do jinns look like? And what would they look like in the hereafter? Well, Allah knows. The jinn, we don't have any definition of them, what they look like in their normal state, that is, when they don't take on, human form or some other forms in our world. I know that people have in the folklore that they have eyes like cats, they have feet like goats and tails and all kinds of stuff, but this is not authentic information. Why can't we see the jinn but they can see us? Well, this is how Allah has created them. Until we developed the microscope, then all the microbes could see us and we couldn't see them too. So, the fact that some of Allah's creation, have certain abilities which are beyond our abilities doesn't mean, that they are more powerful than us, because we have been given a status over the rest of creation, and Iblis being instructed to bow was in recognition, along with the angels, to that status. Some places I go, I see things moving about and hear things. How am I supposed to react to this? Seek refuge in Allah. That is your basic reaction. Don't fear it, because ultimately nothing can happen to us except what God has written to happen to us. In the Quran, it mentions the speed of angels as they travel in one day, which is equivalent to 50,000 years of ours. Please explain. Well, really, there's no real explanation, because when you go into the issue of what is it referring to in terms of one day, is it one day, 24-hour day? Because a day is 24 hours on our planet. A day on Saturn may be so many years, when in a day, in a year, what is this year? Are these light years? How far light travels in a year, or what? We just have a general statement from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala letting us know that the commands which come by way of the angels are over huge spaces of time, etc. And even so, they fulfill the commandments of God as they are given. If we watch a show of a person practicing magic, are we committing a sin? Well, if the show is something where people are clearly indicating that these are just tricks. I mean, they're not claiming for themselves magic. They're not taking on the aura of the magician, but just something to entertain people. Then we could say that this is permissible, but preferable that we avoid it in any case, because it is, even though it may not be clear out and out magic, it is bordering on that field, that forbidden field. Can jinn replicate or reproduce? Yes. There is evidence from both the Quran and Sunnah that they do have generations after them. Quran refers to, dhurriya, or descendants from among the jinn and men. Is it true that the Quran kills the jinn or keeps them away when read out loud? Well, I don't know about killing the jinn, but they do repel, it does repel the jinn. Why is it regarded so seriously in Islam to go to the fortune teller or believe what he says? As I stated, this involves attributing to others knowledge of the unseen, which only is known to God. I mean, even Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, stated, Allah had him state in the Quran, that if he knew the unseen, the hidden things, then he would have gathered around him all of the good, and no evil would have befallen him. So, when a person in this world is now claiming that he has this knowledge of the unseen, he's claiming himself really to be greater even than the prophets. What is the difference between jinn, iblis, and shaitan? Well, the jinn represents that other creation, created from a fiery origin. Iblis is the name of that main individual amongst the jinn who was cursed by Allah, and shaitan is a name, Satan is a name which may be applicable to both jinns and men, because Allah refers to shayateen al-insi wal jinn, that there are devils amongst both humankind and the jinn. They represent the evil among the jinn, or evil among mankind. Do the angels do what we do? Well, if it means going to the bathroom, I don't think they do. But, do what we do. They do whatever Allah commands them, as Allah says in the Quran, وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. They do whatever they're commanded to do. They don't have a free will. The only beings that have free will are the jinn, the world of the jinn, and human beings. How does a person stop a jinn communicating with them? By reciting the Quran, by protecting themselves, by removing things which would attract evil in from their homes, from around themselves, by using the different du'as which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the supplications which he gave us when we go to our homes, when we leave our homes, when we go in the bathroom, when we put on our clothes, etc., etc. My mother hasn't yet accepted Islam. I'm a revert. Should she pass away and my eldest sister insist on a chapel funeral, what is the Islamic perspective on me attending the funeral? Well, to attend the rites, the funeral rites, is not permissible. For a Muslim to attend the religious rites of any other system is not, or religious group is not acceptable. For one to go to the grave as a reminder of death, etc., it's acceptable. But where one attends and takes part in the funeral rites, this is not permissible. Can one have a jinn protector, as some claim to? No. Who do jinns tend to enter and how? Well, the hows, Allah knows. I know people say it comes in through your foot or through your eye or your toe or whatever. Most of this is delusion. Actually, There's a book which will be available through the Islamic Information Center called The Exorcist Tradition in Islam, which I have just written. It should be available maybe within the next month or so. And this is a major research which I did for my PhD on the issues of possession, exorcism, etc. And it identifies, a lot of the misconceptions people have concerning exorcism. And hopefully, inshallah, you can get this book and get greater clarification of it. But the jinns, generally speaking, do tend to enter those people who are deviating or ignorant, deviating from true religion, etc. They do, of course, sometimes affect people who are true believers. They can affect them as part of the tests of this life. Does Iblis still exist? Is he alive? Yes. Is it true that his kingdom is located in Bermuda, the Bermuda Triangle? No. We can't say this. This is fiction. Is it true to say that humans were created as a sign for the angels? No. That is a sign to know that Allah knows everything, and to worship Allah is a duty given to them when they were created? No, we can't say this. Is a UFO a kind of jinn operation? Possibly, we spoke about. Is it true that people who don't reside in their own country, immigrants, can get money from the bank and take interest, and it isn't haram or a sin? No, this is not true. The taking of interest is haram, a major sin, and can only be justified where one is in a situation where life and death is at play, is at question. A person is in dire need of a major operation to save their lives, and the Muslim community refuses to donate and to help them have this necessary operation, so they take out a bank loan to save themselves. This is a circumstance where Allah knows this is permissible for protection of one's life and health. But other than that, it is not permissible for one to take interest or pay interest, except where it comes under the area, as we said before, in the case of insurance, where it is necessary for driving a car, you must have insurance, or to have certain buildings which are necessary in the Muslim community, you may be required to have these insurances. So you take out the minimum possible policy. The general principle when dealing with these type of issues is that you only do as much as is absolutely necessary to fulfill that greater good that you're trying to achieve. And this is based on the principle that if a person is starving to death, plane crash on the desert, whatever, and the only thing that's available, is to save your life is, one of the members on the plane had a bottle of alcohol, and that's the only thing that's there to save your life. What you do is you take enough. You just take, a cap full. What is enough to keep yourself alive? You feel yourself about to die, you take a little bit to keep yourself alive. I mean, you don't just, take a little bit and you say, that tastes real nice. You pour yourself a full glass and then you're at it. No. You're only allowed to take what is absolutely necessary to save your life. How do you know if a hadith is right or wrong? This is a science. The science of analysis of hadith called Usul al-Hadith, which teaches you based on the narrators and the status of the narrators in terms of their ability to memorize, etc. They are classified in different classifications, and the errors in which they came to know who met who, if they lived in the same generation or not, whatever. And the text itself, whether the text contradicts, other known texts. And, there's a whole system of whole science there which the scholars have developed for analysis of hadith to determine which are authentic and which are not. And this science is so rigorous. If it were applied to information which is given to us today in the newspaper, etc., or written in books, we would have to reject virtually all of these books and newspaper accounts, because it deals actually with character, of people's character. If a person is narrating a piece of information and they are known to be of bad character, then that information is rejected. If a person is narrating a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, he is in that chain of narrators, and it is known that this person didn't pray regularly, you know, they didn't fast or whatever, they're known to be of bad character, then their hadith will be rejected simply based on their character. If we use that principle with regards to what we read in the newspapers today or the books, you know, written by different authors, etc., we wouldn't accept anything. We wouldn't hardly accept anything. This is how stringent the scholars developed the science in order to ensure that the information came to us is in fact authentic information. Are Muslim women allowed to go and seek Islamic knowledge? They're allowed to go and seek Islamic knowledge as well as academic knowledge. We know that almost a quarter of the religion, Islamic law, was conveyed to us by Aisha, the third wife of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. She was the fourth most prolific narrator of hadiths. Many studied under her, and there were many of those who taught leading scholars, Imam Malik and others. Their teachers were women. So this is history, Islamic history, that women were scholars. And this is one of the things in our times where the lack of female scholarship has led to a rise, you know, of some ignorant females who have claimed for themselves knowledge, you know, under the banner of feminism, where they're now going to make a feminist interpretation of the Quran, you know, this kind of nonsense, you know. And this is due to that lack of female scholarship. And it is an error on the part of the Muslim Ummah that, you know, women have not had the access to Islamic scholarship that they did in the early generations. Could you please explain the dress requirements of Muslim women? Everything should be covered except for face and hands. Covering of the face is also commendable. It is not, as some people would say, that it is something from Persian culture, etc., and not really a part of Islam or Arab culture. No, it is a part and parcel of the deen. It is something recommended. It is, in the view of some scholars, that it is also compulsory. A majority of scholars don't hold that, but at least the minimum that a woman should cover is everything except for her face and hands. And she should be covered in such a way that the covering is not see-through, because if it's covering see-through, then it's not real covering. Or it should not be form-fitting, that it's showing the shape of her body and the parts of her body, etc. This is not considered proper covering either. It should be loose, wide, and should not be, especially when she's out of her home in the presence of others, it should not be attractive in and of itself like a dress. So it's a form of beauty attracting the attention of others, because the dress is to protect her modesty, this outer dress that she wears when she goes outside of her home. Many habits nowadays are not included in the Quran. For example, smoking. How do we assure or ascertain whether they're halal or haram? Well, from Islamic law, we have the principle of qiyas, that is analogy, analysis and giving rulings by way of analogy, which allows us to carry rulings from what Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has addressed to things that he has not. So, for example, smoking, and I guess this is an important point because, you know, I think there's probably a lot of smokers out there in the audience. Muslims today tend to be some of the biggest smokers. You know, smoking has gone down in the West due to them being forced to put on the packets that it's dangerous to health, and you know, many campaigns against smoking. So it has reduced, it has declined in the West, smoking. But in Muslim lands, it has risen tremendously. The fact of the matter is that the argument used by most people, it's makruh, disliked. This is an Islamic ruling, makruh, meaning disliked. Meaning, if you didn't do it, you would be rewarded by Allah. But if you did it, there's no sin on you. Now, this ruling of makruh was made about 500 years ago, when tobacco first came to the Muslim world. It came to the Ottoman Empire, right? And people started using it. In fact, it was the Ottomans who developed cigarettes. The paper cigarette, rolling it, the Ottomans, Muslims developed it. Didn't know that, did you? Because before that, people smoked in pipes. Yeah? At any rate, the scholars in Turkey and elsewhere had to analyze this and give a ruling on it. And their ruling was that it was makruh based on the effects that they could observe. They found that the main harm when a person smoked cigarettes is that it produced a bad breath. We know the smoker's breath. They have all kinds of things you can buy, sprays, etc., for people who smoke. Bad breath. So they looked back in the Sharia to see, in what was revealed law, to see what was the ruling on things which cause bad breath. And we know Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said that whoever eats raw onion and garlic should not come to our masjids. Then they took the similar ruling to smoking, which caused the bad breath, similarly makruh. However, since the 15th century, we have had changes in our knowledge concerning smoking. In 1979, the Surgeon General of the United States of America announced to America and the world that it was conclusively proven that smoking causes cancer. Now, this has been something which had been debated for some 20 years before that. They were analyzing the results, and you had doctors saying, yes, smoking is causing cancer. We can see the evidence, statistical evidence, etc. And then the doctors who were paid by the tobacco companies, they were saying, no, it's not really, these statistics are questionable, and so on and so. But finally, by 1979, the evidence was so overwhelming that the Surgeon General announced that it causes cancer without a shadow of a doubt. And they forced all of the cigarette companies to put on every box, smoking is dangerous to health. Right? And believe that those cigarette companies didn't put it on the boxes, out of concern for the general health of the population. They're putting it because they were forced. And this is big business. America is only doing that because of the overall harm to the population. So, once we know now that smoking causes cancer, we have to look for a different ruling. Cancer, we know, causes death. People die from cancer. And there are hundreds of thousands dying every year from cancer caused by smoking. And the ruling in Islamic law in this regard is haram. Whatever will kill you is haram for you to take, knowing that it will kill you. To take poison, to drink it, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, whoever kills himself in this life will find himself killing himself in the same way perpetually in the hellfire. Suicide is haram, forbidden. And when a person takes cigarettes, is smoking, he is committing suicide, slowly but surely. Because it doesn't make any difference whether I take a small glass of poison and drink sips of it, and after 1 year I drop down dead, or I take the full glass and drink it right now and die. Both ways, it is suicide and forbidden. So the correct ruling on smoking today is that it is haram, forbidden. I know some people will come back with the argument. I got the T sign, I'll just close off the argument here. Some people come back saying, well, there are people who smoke and don't die. Yes, the oldest woman in China, she smokes a cigar every day and she's been doing it for the last 30, 40 years of her life. Yes, so it says, see, you don't necessarily die. But you see, Islamic law, it governs the general. And common sense tells you, you must follow what is the general ruling concerning things. For example, there are people who have fallen out of airplanes 40 and 50,000 feet and have got up and walked away. This happens. So now what do? When you jump out of an airplane, you're going to not take a parachute with you saying, oh, there are people who, they've gotten up from it. I'll jump out the airplane without the parachute. Allah will protect me. No, this is nonsense. You take your parachute because you don't use the exception to judge the danger of a given situation. Similarly, those few people who don't die though they smoked all their lives, these are exceptions. Allah has left them as signs to us that ultimately life and death is in His hands. These are the signs. But we are required to follow the general circumstance, not the exception. Most people who smoke get cancer and die. The Marlboro Man, remember the Marlboro Man? riding on his horse with his jeans and his cap, rugged with that cigarette in his mouth. For many years, the Marlboro Man was, the big symbol, smoking symbol. Well, his wife is now suing Marlboro for her husband dying of cancer. Inshallah, we'll see you in the coming sessions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
One Islam Productions, an Islamic film studio established in Australia, is dedicated to producing films for all Muslims. Just some of the films by One Islam Productions: children's programs, Islam for Me, We Remember Allah, Storytime, and more. Educational films, Pray as You Have Seen Me Pray, Words, Ramadan, Renewal of Faith. Documentaries. We at One Islam Productions believe that Islam is precious and deserves to be presented in only the highest quality. Visit us at www.oneislam.net for more information. One Islam Productions, a film production company run by Muslims for Muslims.